Hello class, we are in page 285 in our arithmetic book. Today we're going to learn how to change fractions into decimals. In school we did learn how to change decimals to a fraction. Today we're going to learn the other way around, which is from a fraction to a decimal. So we are in page 285 in our books. So moving on to our rule, what do we have to do to be able to change from a fraction to a decimal? It says to change a common fraction to a decimal, divide the numerator by the denominator. Annex zeros to the numerator. As you can see, it is telling you to divide. You're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. But we don't want remainders. What do we do if we don't want a remainder? We add a decimal point, and after that we do annex a zero. So let me go ahead and show you an example as we are dividing the numerator by the denominator to be able to change a fraction to a decimal. So my first example is 3 over 20. I want to change 3 over 20 into a decimal. My rule said that I have to divide my numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When I divide the numerator by the denominator, my numerator is going to be inside the house and my denominator is going to be outside the house. But some of you are going to say, Mr. Jung, how am I supposed to divide 20 divided by 3? I can't do that. Let me go ahead and show you how we are going to divide 20 divided by 3. So first off, how many times can 20 go into 3? That would be 0 times. So let's go ahead and add that 0 first. And my next step is going to be adding my decimal point. Remember, there is an imaginary decimal point. So I'm going to add that decimal point, bring it up to my quotient. And after that, I am going to annex a 0. Now, how many times can 20 go into 30? That'll be once. So 1 times 20 equals 20. 30 minus 20 equals 10. But I don't want a remainder, so I'm going to annex a 0. And I'm going to keep dividing. How many times can 20 go into 100? That'll be 5 times. 5 times 20 equals 100. And my remainder is 0. That means 3 over 20 as a decimal will be 0.15. Let me go ahead and show you another example. Moving on to our next example, we have 7 over 8. The rule said I had to divide what by what? That's correct. The numerator by the denominator. So we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. 7 divided by 8. I can't divide 8 divided by 7. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write down that 0 and my decimal point. Bring up my decimal point to my quotient and annex a 0 right after that. Can we divide 8 divided by 70? Yes, we can. How many times can 8 go into 70? That'll be 8 times. 8 times 8 equals 64. I have a remainder of 6. After that, I annex a 0. I'll annex a 0. How many times can 8 go into 60? That'll be 7 times. 8 times 7 equals 56. 56. 60 minus 56 equals 4. I don't want a remainder, so I'm going to keep annexing zeros until I have no remainder. How many times can 8 go into 40? That'll be 5 times. 8 times 5 equals 40, and my remainder will be 0. So my final answer is going to be 0.875. That means 7 over 8 as a decimal is going to be 0.875. Just remember, you are dividing the numerator by the denominator and you don't want a remainder. So what you're going to do is you're going to keep annexing zeros until you have no remainder. There are some fractions that I want you to memorize with their decimal. That's going to be our next slide. So on my next slide, I have a fraction and its decimal. Yes, you can just go ahead and divide the numerator by the denominator, but it's a lot easier if we memorize these fractions and their decimals. So as you can see, let's look at our first row. I have 1/2. 1/2 equals 0.5. Then we have 1/4 equals 0.25. 3/4 equals 0.75. 1/5 equals 0.2. 2/5 equals 0.4. 3/5 equals 0.6. 4/5 equals 0.8. 1/8 equals 0.125. 3/8 equals 0.375. 5/8 equals 0.625. And 7/8 equals 0.875. So a lot easier if we memorize those fractions and their decimals. So let's go ahead and repeat those fractions and decimals together one more time before we move on to our classwork. Let's go ahead and start with 1/2. 1/2 equals 0.5. 1/4 equals 0.25. 3/4 equals 0.75. 1/5 equals 0.2. 2/5 equals 0.4. 3/5 equals 0.6. 4/5 equals 0.8. 1/8 equals 0.125. 3/8 equals 0.375. 5/8 equals 0.625. And 7/8 equals 0.875. For today's classwork is going to be page 285, and you're going to do all page 285. Goodbye.